It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by AgileDad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. I thought I would kick this off with a story. So, a friend of mine recently pointed me to an article, and I'm trying to recap everything, and I hope I do it justice, but here we go. It starts off, if they just would have listened to the team, to UX, we could have saved so much heartache and work. A colleague was working on her second cup of coffee and clearly fired up for our routine morning check in as she recounted a story I'd heard so many times before. Her team had conducted their research, knew the customer, and despite outlining a vision in a service line meeting, the product team had decided to go for the money. They went in a different direction, one that favored the business case instead of the use case. The results were, let's say, less than favorable. Now they were attempting to reboot the product in a direction that coincidentally aligned with the original proposal from the user experience team. She turned to me and sighed and said, "Nobody ever listens to user experience." I thought about that for a long time after the conversation. I thought about how to experience similar situations in my work. I even said the same thing myself a number of times in my career. Nobody ever listens to UX. Nobody ever understands how user experience works. A few weeks after the conversation, I was shown a quote from someone from Rice University. It was one of the former presidents, David LeBron. And it was a blurb from something called the Chronicle of Higher Education. The article featured 9 outgoing presidents who weighed in on how higher education is changing. LeBron said, "Being a college president is a lot like walking through a graveyard. There are a lot of people underneath you, but nobody is listening." That is what the colleague was trying to say. This is exactly what I say to myself. This is exactly what I hear teams say, and leadership say, and stakeholders say. And over and over, I could go on, customers say, nobody's listening to me. If the president of a major university felt that nobody was listening to him, then perhaps this problem is more closely related to a human condition than to our respective organization or profession. Perhaps we shouldn't take it personally when a team doesn't listen to us or doesn't listen to UX. Maybe everyone at some level just isn't good at listening. Now, that makes things interesting because I've had a recent opportunity to work with lots of organizations where, let's just say, they wanted help and they reached out to me directly and they were excited and engaged, but could I say listening wasn't their strong suit? And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's just sometimes we get in that position where we need to put the listening ears on and close the front door trap where noise comes out, and i.e. the mouth. And it just feels like sometimes we're not engaged in a way that we should. We're not engaged in a productive way. So what better way than to lead in with another example from Harry Potter? If you could put on Harry Potter's invisibility cloak, wouldn't that be nice? And walk around your organization, I bet you'd hear people like frontline workers, developers, anybody who's getting their hands dirty doing the work, even product owners saying, nobody ever listens to us. I bet there are big corporate meetings where the CEO in charge says, why doesn't anyone listen? And I know for a fact that there's a college professor in a classroom somewhere in the world thinking in the back of her mind, is anyone even listening to me? Maybe my colleague was right. No one listens to UX, but maybe UX teams do their fair share of not listening to anyone else as well. I don't know. I don't necessarily think that's true. But maybe nobody's listening to anybody because we're all so busy worrying about being heard. Oh, hold on. I want to say that again. Maybe nobody is listening to anybody because we're all too busy worrying about being heard. Wow. I can't help but think of our organization and our world as a microcosm of this exact problem. It might be a better place if we just turned things down a little bit and took time to listen rather than fretting over being heard. So for me, listening is an art. Listening is more than just hearing. Listening is the art of understanding. It's the art of absorbing information, taking that information and processing it into something meaningful, and coming up with some formula of how you are going to apply what you've learned. So listening is more than just hearing. It's taking what you've learned and applying it in a setting that makes other people feel like they've been heard. So the greatest gift we can ever give anyone is our time. I always say time is so incredibly valuable. And when you listen to someone, you literally are shutting off the outside world and giving them those few moments of time so that they can feel like they have been heard. When people feel heard, they feel a connection to the people who are willing to listen. And if you want to be heard, perhaps you have to take time to do the first step and give your time to someone else and establish a connection with them. Because what I've found over time is that when we take the time to really genuinely listen to others instead of just hear what's being said, it improves our ability to make connections, keep connections, and to really dial in to what we should be doing. So you could be the best UX strategist in the world, a UX designer, a UX researcher. You could be the best product owner in the world. You could be the best stakeholder in the world. But you can also learn how to manipulate Figma with the best of them, implement ginormous design systems or build experiences that make users swoon. But UX is simply a people sport. Until you take the time to understand how people click and how to cultivate relationships, your work is going to go largely unappreciated and you'll mostly be unheard. I think it's kind of the chicken and egg argument. In order to be heard, you need to listen. And in order to listen, you need to make sure someone else feels like they're being heard. It doesn't necessarily work perfectly in every scenario, but what I can tell you is from my experience, it'll at least get you off to a good start. So I hope that you realize that listening is an art, that it doesn't come naturally, that sometimes you need to dial in. And when you do, and you invest the time in learning how to be a better listener, it's going to help you. So, my number one tip for this is slow down your speaking. If you literally slow down your tempo and give people a chance to interject, to say their piece, not only will they appreciate it, but they'll feel like they were part of your listening journey. So there you have it. That's all for today's topic. If you have a topic you want us to talk about, we're listening to you. Reach out to us at learnmore@agiledad.com, where we'd love to discuss your topic. And as always, we'd love for you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.